You don't need another life hack, another challenge, another recycled motivation slogan, and definitely not more influencer noise. You need to disappear, not from your life, but from the noise that's been shaping it. Not forever, not dramatically, just long enough to become someone unrecognizable. Because right now, every time you expose unfinished plans too early, something leaks. Not visibly, not instantly, but slowly. Your edge gets diluted. Your focus weakens. Your identity fragments. And the worst part, you don't even notice it happening. There is a time for public commitment, a bow before the clan. But first comes silence, to reveal the promise worth keeping. Ancient samurai understood this. They trained in silence. They fought battles long before anyone saw them. And here's the truth most people never realize. The version of you you're trying to build cannot survive in the noise that created your current self. Can you step into those shadows without needing applause? Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand exactly how to disappear, transform, and why you may never need to step back onto the stage at all. In the next few minutes, I'll show you a simple but brutal truth. Ancient wisdom and modern science converge on one principle. Silence plus focused isolation rewires identity and maximizes performance. Zen calls it detachment. Science calls it reducing cognitive interference. Samurai call it discipline. Psychology calls it intrinsic motivation. Different words, same weapon. Used by warriors, monks, and high performers across centuries. You'll learn why visibility weakens your growth, how the shadow becomes a real, optimized state for change, and the 3 phases of transformation: disappear, transform, and the unexpected truth about reappearing. And somewhere in the middle, you'll feel it. That quiet shift where you stop chasing approval and start building real power. Let's begin where most people fail. Chapter 1. The Trap of Being Seen. You say you want to change, so you post about it, talk about it, announce it. But something strange happens. You feel productive without actually doing the work. Like you've already taken a step forward, just because you talked about it. Why? Because your brain confuses attention with progress. Science calls this cognitive interference. Every external input fragments your focus. The samurai would call it weakness. Visibility invites judgment, distraction, and subtle sabotage. One comment, one doubt, one comparison. And suddenly, your focus isn't yours anymore. The moment you stop announcing your growth, your energy consolidates. It stops leaking outward and starts building inward. And the strange part? At first, it feels uncomfortable, almost like you're falling behind. But you're not. You're finally working without interference, and something starts to shift inside. But silence alone isn't enough, because when the noise fades, something else appears. Chapter 2. Meeting the Shadow. When you disappear, you don't find peace first. You find resistance, an urge to check your phone, to escape, to break the silence, boredom, doubt, restlessness. This is your shadow, not metaphorical but neurological. It's the untrained mind reacting to the absence of stimulation. But here's the shift. The shadow is not your enemy. It's the entry point. In isolation, your brain begins neuroplastic change, rewiring itself based on what you repeatedly do or refuse to do. Old patterns weaken, new ones take root. Not dramatic, but irreversible. That's why discomfort in silence forces identity reconstruction, turning resistance into your greatest ally. If you can sit in that discomfort without escaping, you gain something rare: control over your own attention. And control over attention is control over your future. Now, the real training begins. And it's not glamorous. Chapter 3. Discipline without witnesses. No one is watching. No one is clapping. No audience, no feedback, no proof that it even matters. This is where most people quit, because external validation disappears, and with it, their motivation. If this feels uncomfortable, good. That means you're exactly where most people turn back. Don't. This is where transformation actually starts. Psychology calls it intrinsic motivation, acting without reward, without recognition. The samurai trained like this daily, alone, swing after swing, repetition after repetition, movements no one would ever see, long before there was ever a battlefield. Because they understood, the battle is already decided before it begins. Discipline in silence builds self-trust, and self-trust replaces the need for validation. The moment you act without needing to be seen, your identity shifts from performer to hidden master to a modern samurai. And one day you notice it. You no longer need motivation to start. You just begin. That's when discipline stops being effort and becomes identity. But something else changes too. Something deeper than habits. Chapter 4. The invisible advantage. At first, you withdraw to focus. But over time, something unexpected happens. You stop caring about things that once controlled you. Not in a negative way, but in a precise, controlled way. Zen calls this detachment. You're no longer pulled by opinions, no longer distracted by comparison, because you've seen what growth actually requires. And it's not approval. External validation weakens focus. Internal validation builds power. When you validate yourself through action, your confidence stops fluctuating. It stabilizes. You become internally anchored, stable, even when nothing around you is. And once you reach this point, going back to your old way of living feels almost impossible. And this leads to the final phase, the one most people misunderstand. Chapter 5. The myth of reappearing. The story says, disappear, transform, reappear, stronger, better, recognized. But here's the twist. If you did it right, you no longer need to reappear, because the desire to be seen quietly disappears. Not forced, not suppressed, just no longer relevant. You don't avoid visibility. You're just no longer dependent on it. True success is psychological independence, not public recognition. When you stop needing validation, you become dangerous in the best sense. Focused, unshakable, free. You realize something almost unsettling. You could win and say nothing about it. So what does this actually look like in your life? Chapter 6. The modern application. You don't need a mountain or a monastery. You need controlled isolation. Reduce the noise. Fewer inputs, fewer opinions, less reacting. Create private goals. No announcements, no external pressure. Build silent routines, the kind no one sees, but that shape you daily. Track internally. Measure progress without broadcasting it. Set standards instead of goals. Because goals end, standards become who you are. This is your shadow state, an optimized environment for neuroplastic change, habit formation, identity reconstruction. And over time, something quiet but powerful happens. You stop asking, "How do I look?" and start asking, "Am I aligned?" That's the shift. You came here thinking you needed more discipline, more effort, more intensity. But what you really needed was distance from the scrolls, opinions, and comparisons that were shaping you. Disappearing isn't about hiding from the world. It's about removing everything that prevents you from rebuilding yourself. Privacy protects growth. Silence builds power. And discipline turns both into identity. So, here's your next step. Pull back. Just a little. Not to escape life, but to rebuild yourself without interference. Work in silence. Let your actions speak later, or not at all. Because the strongest version of you doesn't need to be seen to exist. It just needs silence to be born.